The movie kicks off with a guy named Chung Shietsi, who can't see, but he's playing a gambling game with some folks. Surprisingly, he's pretty good at it, and he's winning a bunch of money this time. But the guys running the game think they can take advantage of him because he's blind, so they try to cheat him by raising the bets. Chung figures out their trick, but he can't do anything about it and ends up losing almost all his money. As they're about to grab his cash, this dude named Ho Chu Feng shows up and starts yelling at the guys running the game. Chu Feng owns the place where they're gambling, and he says sorry to Chung and invites him to keep playing. But Chung's had enough, so he says no thanks and walks away. While Chung is on his way out, a bunch of people block his path, and it turns out it's Chu Feng and his crew. Even though Chung can't see, he manages to beat them up without breaking a sweat. After taking care of Chu Feng and his buddies, Chung asks about a woman named Ni Yan, who nobody seems to know where she is. Now we go back in time about a month. Chung used to be a wanderer, and he was in a city where they hired tough fighters to catch bad guys and keep the place safe. Chung got hired as one of these fighters, and he got paid a good amount for it. So, Chung was pretty tired and wanted a break, but then he caught a whiff of some amazing smelling wine and followed the scent to a house getting ready for a big party. That's where he met a really pretty lady named Ni Yan. She asked him why he was there, and he said he wanted to buy some of that delicious wine. But Ni Yan told him it wasn't for sale because they were gonna serve it at a big party for her wedding. Hearing that, Chung decided it was best to leave. But later, Ni Yan felt bad for Chung when she found out he was blind. She gave him a few bottles of wine for free. When they were trying to tie the wine onto Chung's horse, they got a surprise. There was a big sack wriggling like someone was inside. Chung spilled the beans and said the sack held a criminal on the run. Turns out Chung's a guy who catches bad guys for a living. To cut a long story short, the wedding party finally got started. Guests showed up to celebrate the bride and groom, Ni Yan and her husband, who looked really happy. But then things got weird when this guy named Ni Ju, who's Ni Yan's older brother and a warrior, showed up. Instead of being happy for his sister, Ni Ju acted all annoying, and it made the guests uncomfortable, so they decided to leave the wedding. After everyone had left, Ni Ju went up to Chung, who was sitting alone, sipping his drink. He tried to act tough and scare Chung, but it didn't work at all. Chung just ignored him and headed over to where his horse was tied up. He ended up crashing there because he had a bit too much to drink. During the night, Chung woke up and decided to check out the banquet. To his shock, he found Ni Ju and the groom lying dead. He started searching for Ni Yan and found her in a bad state on the table. Now let's rewind 4 hours. Chu Feng and his crew barged into the banquet looking for Ni Ju. Their boss, a guy named Yuan Yang, ordered them to kill Ni Ju and the groom. After that, Yuan and his guys did some terrible things to Ni Yan. Before long, Chung stepped in to help Ni Yan. He promised to assist her in getting revenge on Yuan Yang and his gang. The following day, Chung took the criminal he had caught to Mr. Gao, who was the guy in charge of keeping the city safe. What's interesting is that Chung's sharp instincts helped him stop an attempt to assassinate Mr. Gao by one of his own men. After getting his reward, Chung spilled the beans about the murder at Ni Yan's place. Mr. Gao got all worked up and found an arrow that was the Ying family's signature. He explained that Yuan Ying was from a powerful and rich family in the city, and he really didn't want to mess with them. So, Mr. Gao went to Ni Yan and asked her to forgive Yuan Ying and drop the idea of revenge because there was no way she could win against him. But Ni Yan wouldn't back down, so Mr. Gao had no choice but to arrest her for bad-mouthing Yuan Ying's family. When they were taking Ni Yan to court, Chung stepped in and tried to get Mr. Gao to let her go. He said she was innocent and just a victim of the whole thing. But Mr. Gao insisted on sending her to jail. Chung wasn't having it, so he fought Mr. Gao and his guys, even though they were government folks. So, after Chung beat Mr. Gao and his guys, he set Ni Yan free and told her to get out of there fast. But she begged him to help her find justice in the royal capital, and Chung agreed. To make a long story short, they finally got to the royal capital and decided to grab a bite at a diner to rest after their long journey. After lunch, Ni Yan said she was going to report the whole thing to the security forces in the royal capital. Chung told her to be careful and explained that he had to go meet someone and couldn't go with her right then. Turns out Chung went to meet a lady named Chin Neong, who was his partner and gave him important info that helped him catch criminals. Chung gave her some money as thanks for all her help. Chin told Chung about a new job to catch a really big-time criminal who used to be the top dog in the city's underworld. She said it was a tough mission, but the pay was huge, enough to get Chung's eyes fixed so he could see again. Before long, a guy showed up at Chin's place, carrying a wounded man with him. Turns out, the injured guy was one of the bodyguards from the Yuan family. The guy explained that Yuan was proposing to General Ko's daughter, and their engagement party was all fun and games until this woman crashed the party and hurt Yuan. When Chung heard this, he was pretty sure that the woman who hurt Yuan was Ni Yan. The guy had called Ni Yan a crazy woman, and Chung didn't like that at all. He gave the guy a piece of his mind about talking like that. Chin, knowing that Chung was getting involved with the woman mixed up with the Yuan family, warned him to stay away from her. She said the Yuan family was super powerful and influential, especially now that Yuan was getting engaged to General Ko's daughter. But Chung didn't seem to care about Chin's advice. Instead, he headed straight to Yuan's place to find Ni Yan. But when he got there, Ni Yan was nowhere to be found. Turns out, Yuan had caught her and thrown her into jail. Fast forward to the present, Chu Feng, who was already at Chung's mercy, spilled the beans about where they were keeping Ni Yan. Chung wasted no time and rushed to rescue her. After getting her out of there, Chung took Ni Yan to Chin's place and asked Chin to tend to her injuries. As a healer, Chin couldn't just stand by when she saw Ni Yan in such bad shape. Even though she knew there could be consequences for helping her, Chin decided to treat Ni Yan anyway. After that, Chin assisted Chung in finding a safe spot to hide Ni Yan because if she stayed in the city, Yuan would eventually track her down. Meanwhile, Chung went back to deal with Chu Feng, whom he had locked up in a room. He used some not-so-pleasant methods to get information about why Yuan had killed Ni Ju. Chu Feng spilled the beans that General Ko's daughter wanted the Night Pearl pendant as an engagement gift. Yuan was on a quest to find it, and it turned out to be a treasure that belonged to the late Emperor Han. Yuan had ordered a gang of tomb raiders to snatch the pendant from the Emperor's resting place. To keep this theft a secret from the Empire, Yuan had killed the tomb raiders, including Ni Yan's brother, Ni Ju. With this new info, Chung tied a rope around Chu Feng's neck, connected it to a door, and waited. Soon enough, Yuan arrived, and when he opened the door, the rope snared him by the neck, leading to his demise. After one of his loyal underlings died, Yuan got all fired up to find out who was behind all of this. He eventually discovered that Chin was somehow involved, so he ordered his goons to grab her. Yuan then grilled Chin about Chung, the guy who had rescued Ni Yan and taken down his men. Chin spilled the beans that Chung used to be a fierce warrior on the battlefield, but an illness had taken his sight. However, that didn't make him any less of a fighter. Meanwhile, Chung paid a visit to General Ko's place because he wanted to give the general a heads up about Yuan. But instead of listening, General Ko ordered his men to attack Chung. Chung made quick work of them and raced upstairs to meet the general. But once again, he was faced with General Ko's bodyguards. Chung explained that he was there to warn the general about Yuan, his future son-in-law, who was a bad dude. General Ko, hiding in the room, said Chung had no proof. That's when Chung spilled the beans about Yuan's crimes against Ni Yan and her family, and he made it clear that he still planned to take Yuan down, even if the general didn't believe him. Sometime later, an envoy from General Ko arrived at Yuan's place with some shocking news. General Ko had canceled his daughter's marriage to Yuan. This sudden turn of events sent Yuan's older brother into a rage, and he started attacking Yuan. Yuan, feeling threatened, drew his sword and didn't hesitate to kill his own brother. The next day, there was chaos in the town when Chin was found dead with an arrow in her neck. Chung, knowing it was Yuan's doing, rushed to the Yuan family's estate to avenge Chin. There, he faced off against Yuan's tough female warriors. Even though they put up a good fight, Chung managed to defeat them. At the same time, Yuan took a shot at Chung with his bow, catching Chung off guard. But Chung, fueled by anger over Chin's death, refused to give up. He got back on his feet, found Yuan's position, and easily defeated him. When Yuan tried to make a run for it, Chung didn't let him escape. He stabbed Yuan in the chest, ending his life. Chung had finally avenged Qin's death and sought justice for Ni Yan against Yuan. After that, he returned to Ni Yan, informed her about Yuan's demise and the defeat of his men. Chung even gave her some money to help her start fresh and leave behind all the pain she'd been through. So the moral of the story is sometimes the best revenge is a good game of blindfolded gambling and a strong sense of justice. Oh, and never underestimate a blind man with sharp instincts.